If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the masquerade. In this episode, I'm going to go through the basics of the World of Darkness Storyteller system as we learn together how to play Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition. Some 20 weeks ago, I realised there weren't enough guides on how to play Vampire the Masquerade, so I sat down and wrote a guide on how to play the most watered down and accessible of those versions, Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition. 20-ish weeks on, you're now going to be blessed with a stellar guide on how to play the 20th Anniversary Edition of the game. As of the writing of this script, that version of the game is 12 years old, and all the cool cats in the community are playing V5, so why in Lilith's name am I touching this controversial lump of chlamydia marble green? Well, because a significant portion of the VTM fanbase plays V20, even though the community as a whole likes to bash V20 for being gatekeeping crunch fests for boomers and power gamers, which is very much not the case, and ironically, total gatekeeping behaviour. So many people enjoy D&D and more recently Pathfinder, which are both notably more crunchy than this game. It also presents the idea that crunch means harder to play / get into / not fun, which, again, I do not believe is the case. Hopefully, by the end of this tutorial, you'll come around to the idea that V20 can be just as, if not more fun than V5, but just how am I going to do that exactly? Well, I will do my utmost best to break down the basics of Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition on a mechanical level, using a character sheet I prepared for the occasion. This won't be a character creation guide, for I have done one already, which you are more than welcome to listen to. It's literally the 6th episode of the podcast. I'm also not going to go over too much of the lore and the setting. You can listen to practically every other episode of the podcast for that. And in order to understand how to play Vampire, we gotta talk about the actual game system. D&D uses the D20 system, named after the fact that most of the actions are determined by a D20, a 20-sided dice. The Warren and Thirsty Sword Lesbians use the Powered by the Apocalypse system, which uses a D6, a 6-sided dice to determine everything. Vampire the Masquerade and the other World of Darkness games after it uses a system known as the Storytelling system, which would later be used for the Street Fighter RPG. A modified version of this system, the Revised Storyteller system, was introduced for the Trinity Universe games, as well as the adaptations of the Storyteller system used in Scion and Exalted. The new World of Darkness, now known as the Chronicles of Darkness, later introduced its own variation of the system, the Storytelling system. But what is it? The Storyteller system requires you to use D10s, which are 10-sided dice. Actions, whether being tasks or combat, are resolved and determined by forming a dice pool of a small number of these dice. If you look at the character sheet, you'll see your stats are divided up into different sections, attributes and abilities. In V5, for the following system for V20, abilities are called skills, just to save on the confusion. Most of your actions will revolve around the majority of this character sheet by rolling a total number of dice that equals an attribute plus an ability. This is against a difficulty level, which is usually 6, unless otherwise stated by the storyteller, the one running the session. This means that any number that is from 6 to 9, 5 to 2 is a failure. The noughts, the 10s, represent a critical success if you have a pair of them, which makes 4 successes rather than 2. If you get a 1, these cancel successes. However, if none of your dice comes up with a success and 1 or more dice are showing a 1, the roll is a botch. If your score is at least 1 success, even that success is cancelled out and an additional ones remain, it's just a simple failure. A botch is much worse than a normal failure. It's a dramatic misfortune which varies on the scenario, your discipline power, and much, much more. With the basics of the Storyteller system presented, let's put this into practice. Let's take a look at Mario Luigi Giovanni, who is on his way to his studio to make a wholesome, family-friendly film with his stepsister, Daisy, called My Stepsister Came for Tea and Had Her Fill. In case it wasn't obvious, Mario Luigi is a vampire pertaining to the Giovanni clan, a clan, now bloodline sort of but not really, heavily focused on the goals of money and necromantic power. Personally, he likes to stick to family traditions. Anyway, during character creation, this 12th generation vampire rolled a d10 to see how much blood in his blood pool he would be starting with and got a 4. This, however, is not the starting blood pool, as Mario Luigi has to spend 1 to arise from day sleep, meaning he actually has 3 blood points. Blood pool, for those who don't know, is essentially this game's mana/magic system, but with vampiric flavor. A character's blood pool measures how much vitae the vampire has in their system. The blood pool comprises a number of individual blood points. Each blood point corresponds roughly to 1/10 of the blood in an average adult human, a pint or 1/2 liter outside of a human. This is used to, as we discussed moments ago, rising for the night, healing, using your disciplines, your blood-based mythical powers, boosting an attribute for the duration of a scene, and much more. Blood pool also affects self-control or instinct rolls, which comes to play when a character's frenzy becomes imminent. A player may never roll more dice for self-control or instinct than the character has a blood pool. You work out how hungry a vampire is by doing the simple equation of 7 minus self-control or instincts, which, for Mario Luigi here, is particularly worrisome because he currently has 3 blood points, and 2 is when things become a little problematic, so he needs to go out and get a little sippy before he shoots his wholesome films. In more common parlance, he is going to suck off a stranger for blood. Unlike 5th edition, there isn't a dedicated hunting roll dependent on a mechanical preferred feeding type. The ST and player have to communicate how the vampire intends to feed, and the ST then decides an appropriate roll. Mario Luigi wants to track someone down into an alleyway and get the surprise upon them, so the ST may ask Mario Luigi to roll Perception and Streetwise to see if he can see anyone at the standard difficulty of 6. Mario Luigi has 3 dots in Perception and no dots in Streetwise, so he only has 3 dice to roll. However, because he has no dots in Streetwise, one of the talent abilities, this increases the difficulty roll to 7. If it was one of his skill abilities he was using, that would have a +2 modifier, whereas if he has a knowledge ability, he would automatically fail. I like having it as a +3 difficulty modifier personally, but consult your ST players and vice versa on how this and any and all homebrew and rolls should be handled. So, Mario Luigi is rolling 3 dice at a difficulty of 7. He rolls a 10, do, and a 1. 1s cancel out one of the successes, leaving the 2, which is a failure, meaning that Mario Luigi does not see anyone head down an alleyway. Now, he has a few options here, to either keep on searching using the same tactic, which may have an increased difficulty depending on the circumstance, try a different tactic, or risk having such a low blood pool into the next scene. Mario Luigi will try a different approach to feeding, one that will better suit the character build. The player describes to the storyteller how Mario Luigi approaches someone on the street and begins to offer them a large sum of money, which he justifies having by the 4 dots in Mario Luigi's resource background, and all he has to do is one simple challenge. The ST allows this and asks for Mario Luigi to roll Manipulation and Subterfuge, which gives the vampire 6 dice to work with, rather than a measly 3. He could also add the resource dots to this roll too, but the storyteller of the past here didn't quite think of that, so we're just going to pretend that this didn't happen here. Anyway, this time, Mario Luigi is a lot more successful, as he has 2 10s, 2 8s, a 7 and a 4, totaling to 7 successes, as the 2 10s are a crit. Wowzers! The ST then describes in riveting detail how the mortal vessel is ecstatic by this opportunity, eagerly following Mario Luigi for a quickie in an alleyway. A vampire may take up to 3 blood points from a given vessel in a turn, and Mario wants those 3 blood points. This would usually be a fairly painless moment between predator and prey, meaning there is no roll to feed as such. However, Mario & Luigi is a Giovanni, and the kiss is extremely painful as per their clan weakness, which translates to dealing double the damage, translating to 6 damage rather than 3. The mortal not only has made a lot of noise, but they are not in a good shape either. Mario & Luigi, however, is not very intelligent and leaves the mortal there with a few dollar bills around him, but only after licking the wound shut like his sire taught him to. The ST can decide the fate of this mortal later. Now, if this mortal wasn't a mortal or had a lot of willpower, they could resist being sucked off and make a self-control/instinct roll at difficulty 8 to avoid succumbing to the kiss. Only mortals with a very high willpower can resist, mind you. The ST could have elected to have the mortal fight back, but given the circumstance, they allow it to happen without interruption, for the lulz, as the kids say. The ST transitions to the next scene, letting Mario & Luigi's player describe the wholesome family studio, flirting around the true nature of it for the shits and giggles. But while this happens, the ST is actually setting up for a nasty plot twist. The studio has been broken into! The door is unlocked, left ajar, making Mario & Luigi cautious and concerned for the well-being of his stepsister Daisy, especially when this sweaty studio is now a splatterhouse. Mario & Luigi is told that he can't see anyone and fears the worst. He asks the storyteller if he can use one of his disciplines to aid him, specifically the necromancy power he knows, the sepulchre path. What's this about paths? Don't the Giovanni have oblivion like the La Sombra? No. They don't. Before 5th edition, the authors remembered how different necromancy and tenebration, the unique power of the La Sombra, were, and treated them like separate disciplines. Necromancy, in a mechanical sense, is similar to thaumaturgy, the blood sorcery of the Tremere, not the Assamites, who have quietus. Both these magical disciplines have many a path for vampires to learn, including rituals. Whereas thaumaturgy has the caster spend a blood point and make a willpower roll against a difficulty equal to the power's level +3, necromancy has varying rolls to symbolize its more natural fluidity amongst their respective vampires. Discipline powers are similar to V5 in that most vampires only have access to 5 levels, which can achieve by upgrading said discipline and experience points in between sessions. You probably know that V20 and editions before it had discipline powers up to level 9, which is where the illusion of V20 being the more horrific power gaming version comes in. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but unless you have a really low generation, your little neonate ring piece ain't going to sit neatly on all those powers. That's okay though, because some of those Methuselah powers are level 5 powers in V5, so you can live out your power gaming fantasies right there. There are also now amograms to choose over as well, so it is very clear what your vampire is capable of, and there is no cross-referencing multiple books to build the core character. But back to the concerned Mario Luigi, they use Witness of Death, the first power in the Sepulchre Path necromancy power. Mario Luigi doesn't spend any willpower or blood points to activate this power, but must roll Perception plus Awareness at difficulty 5. The storyteller secretly makes it free because of the ruling that the victim, Daisy, died at a place of great significance to her. Mario Luigi rolls his 5 dice and gets 10, 2 8s, 6 and 4, getting Mario Luigi 5 successes. The ST describes the shapeless outline that appears to be hovering around a box, hammering up the detail of the frightened posture and confused flickering of the head. This is Mario Luigi's world right now, and for as long as he has this power active, he has a plus modifier of 3 to any perception-based rolls. Mario Luigi, however, drops it immediately, losing this sight to Daisy. He goes to the box, opens it, and sees Daisy's amputated body parts, which the storyteller reveals in explaining the mess inside in reveling detail. The player describes the shock of discovering this fate, gently removing a ring on her finger, a fetter that he will use to summon her once he has learned more necromancy. He does, however, have a means of learning who did this. Mario Luigi has a level 1 necromantic ritual at his disposal. All beginning necromancers gain 1 level ritual automatically, but any others learned must be gained through in-game play, which is similar to the thaumaturgy of the Tremere. Mario Luigi's ritual is Insight, which is not to be confused with the skill in V5. By staring into Daisy's dead, misaligned eyes, he can see the last thing that she did. He has to stare into her eyes for 5 minutes and roll intelligence plus occult at difficulty 3 plus the rituals level, which in this case is 1, totaling up a difficulty of 4, because 3 plus 1 is 4. Now Luigi has 5 dice to roll and then gets, in total, 7, 5, 4, 3 and 2. With his 3 successes, Mario sees a clear image with the sound of the minutes preceding death. Again, the storyteller makes Mario and Luigi feel those agonizing moments when hunters burst onto the scene and beat the living fucking shit out of the poor ghoul before chopping her up under the illusion she was a vampire and this was the only way to kill them. One of them, however, is still here and rushes out onto the friendly neighborhood Giovanni. Now we're in combat and enter initiative. Both NPC and PC roll 1d10 and add their initiative rating, which is determined by adding up the dexterity and wits together, which are both attributes. For Mario and Luigi, his dex plus wits totals up to 5. He rolls an 8 on the d10, meaning the initiative rating is 13. As for the hunter, his dex plus wits are both 3, totaling 6. He rolls a 10 on the d10, which makes 13 as well. In the case of a tie, such as this one, the one with the high initiative rating goes first. Mario and Luigi's is 5, but the hunter's is 6, so it's the hunter that will attack first. Oh no! But before we deal with that, let us talk about celerity, as that works very differently as to compared to the V5 version. That has no separate powers, not until level 6, but celerity can be used to add an additional die to dex-based rolls, including initiative, providing you spend the adequate blood points to add them all up together. Going back to the action, both PC and NPCs state their action now. The hunter will try and weaken the vampire with a sword, whilst Mario and Luigi want to use the dominate discipline to stop the hunter. There are certain circumstances that shuffle the initiative around besides what I've already mentioned, but you can consult pages 271 and 272 of the V20 core book. The hunter is on the attack. With a sword swipe, he goes to attack Mario and Luigi. Mamma mia! Mario Luigi can dodge here, as he still has an action left. If there were 2 hunters, he could only dodge one of them. So there is a contest here. The hunter's dex and melee against Mario Luigi's dex and athletics, both looking for a difficulty of 6. With the hunter's dice pool of 6, he only gets 1 success. Mario Luigi has a much smaller dice pool of 3, which doesn't look great here. Mario Luigi will use a willpower point to net him 1 automatic success that cannot be cancelled out by 1s on the d10 roll. Mario Luigi is also going to spend a blood point to increase the physical attribute rolls to this scene by 1, giving Mario Luigi 4 dice in total, netting him 4 successes, 3 of his dice pool and 1 from the willpower, beating the hunter, successfully dodging out of the way. But what would happen if those numbers were the other way round? How much damage would Mario Luigi have taken from the sword? Well, there are 3 types of damage in V20: bashing, lethal, and aggravated. Bashing are punches, kicks, and those sorts of things. Lethal are gunshots, swords, and anything that would be deemed lethal for a mortal. Aggravated damage are supernatural things that hurt vampires like fire, sunlight, and werewolf bites. Consulting the table on page 280, swords cause lethal damage using strength plus 1. In our alternative example, where the hunter hits Mario Luigi, he beats him 4-1. Only 1 success against him is needed, meaning there are 3 dice left over, which are added to the strength plus 1 roll to determine the damage. The hunter's strength is 2 plus 1 is 3. That makes the dice pool damage calculation of 6 and is rolled with the standard difficulty of 6. Alternative Universe Hunter only got 1 success here, meaning Mario Luigi would take 1 lethal damage on his character sheet. However, as a vampire, Alternate Universe Mario Luigi has 1 ability up his sleeve, and that is soaking damage. This is done by rolling stamina. Mortals can only soak bashing damage, and aggravated damage can only be soaked by using the Fortitude discipline, which adds as many dice you have in that discipline to your soak roll. This is considered a a reflexive action. Characters need not take an action or split a dice pool to soak. Unless otherwise stated, soak rolls are made versus difficulties of 6. Each soak success subtracts 1 die from the total lethal damage inflicted. As with damage rolls, soak rolls may not botch, only fail. Again, with difficulty 6, Alternative Universe Mario Luigi rolls his stamina pool of 3 and gets 3 successes. This means he would actually take no damage from the attack. But that is not what happened. The hunter missed, turned around to face Mario Luigi, who shouts "Stop" at the hunter using the Dominate Power command. As written, this is not an instant victory against mortals, but beating their willpower rating as the difficulty, which in this case is a 5. Mario Luigi rolls manipulation plus intimidation, giving him 6 dice to roll, scoring 10, 2 6s, 5 and 2 4s, which is 4 successes, with the storyteller interpreting that as many turns the hunter is stationary. Now, had this not gone out as Mario Luigi wanted, we would move on to the next round, with both characters taking initiative again. But standing still like this, Mario Luigi has a lot of options. He could interrogate the hunter, beat him to a pulp by adding his dots in potence to all strength-related rolls. In melee and brawling combat, successes from potence, either rolled or automatic, are applied to the damage roll results. Mario Luigi could also split his dice pool to do some multi-action stuff, but that can be additional things you can learn about in your own time. And that is really the basics of playing Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition. The only thing that we really haven't discussed is roleplay and all that political shawazza, which I've kinda covered in previous episodes of the podcast. I hope this has been helpful for you, and if there's anything about Vampire the Masquerade's mechanics you wish to learn about, do get in touch via the YouTube comment section or social media post. I would love to be able to come up with more helpful content for you all. Just check to see if there are other episodes first and if I haven't covered them already. This means you have to listen to them all, which is really my master plan coming into full effect. To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.